Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Wednesday, August the 12th, 2020.
All right.
Hi. Sorry to keep you.
That's all right. You ready to go to work?
Oh my God. I'm so ready to go to work.
I was raised to take action. My mother knew that she was raising two black daughters who would be treated differently because of how they looked. Growing up, whenever I got upset about something, my mother would look me in the eye and ask, "So what are you going to do about it?" That's why, when I saw a broken justice system, I became a lawyer to try and fix it. It's why, during the foreclosure crisis, I took on the big banks as California's Attorney General. It's why, as United States Senator, I have fought to represent people like my mother, people who politicians often overlook or don't take seriously. Right now, America needs action. In the middle of a pandemic, the president is trying to rip away health care. While small businesses close, he's given breaks to his wealthy donors. And when the people cried out for support, he tear-gassed them. America is in crisis, and I know Joe Biden will lead us out of it. He's a man of faith, decency, and character. He raised his family that way. I saw it firsthand with my good friend Bo. As Joe says, we're in a battle for the soul of this nation. But together, it's a battle we can win. We just have to take action.
First of all, is the answer yes?
The answer is absolutely yes, Joe, and I am ready to work. I am ready to do this with you, for you. I'm just deeply honored, and I'm very excited.
And I'm very excited too about the history that has been made by Kamala Harris yesterday, becoming the first black woman to be a vice presidential nominee in either of the two major political parties in this country, the United States of America. That ad was from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris' campaign. This is indeed an historical moment for the country, and for black women, as I said yesterday, a special moment of pride. I'm going to give this text message number out. It's not something that I really do with these podcasts, but for this one time and one time only, if you are somebody who wants to contribute or get involved in the Biden-Harris campaign, with the stakes being as high as they are, then if you have a cell phone, you want to be able to text the following word to 30330. And that word is ready. Text ready, READY, ready. Text that word to 30330. And that's how you can get involved and stay in touch with the Biden-Harris campaign. On this episode of The Politicrat, a few more thoughts on this, the first full day of the vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris. And also some states to talk about for voters. 4 states today: North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, and Oklahoma. Coming up next.
Yes or no?
Could you repeat that question?
I will repeat it. Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The
president or anybody else.
Seems you'd remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but...
Perhaps they suggested.
I don't know, I wouldn't say suggest.
Hinted?
I don't know.
Inferred? You don't know. Okay.
Is a good fight. So we're up for this. We're up for this. And it's really important to remember that, because I know these last couple of years, folks have been throwing objects at that inanimate object called TV, going through individual and group therapy about it all. Well, let's remember we're up for a good fight. We're up for this. And I come from fighters. I mean, my career started here in this town with a good...
Welcome back. Those two clips, first from May the 1st, 2019, Senator Kamala Harris, during a Senate hearing, questioning Attorney General Bill Barr and having him stutter and hem and haw and render him really speechless during that questioning. And you saw how, or you could hear how effective that questioning was. He just didn't have anything, did he? This is a guy who's never short of words and never lost for them. And then in the second clip you heard was from last September 2019, in San Francisco, California, during a campaign stop for Kamala Harris. And I actually was there to see her and record that moment. And I also later on met her, had a picture taken with her, and little did I know that I would be taking a picture with a person who was going to be making history little less than a year later. And that's exactly what Senator Kamala Harris did yesterday, with becoming the first black woman and first woman also who is South Asian in background to be the vice presidential pick for a major political party in the United States. And what you heard in that second clip of audio was exactly what and who Kamala Harris is, a fighter. She comes from a family of fighters. She comes from fighters. And I think that is what will be very important in what is going to be a bruising presidential election campaign and a bruising election. This is not going to be easy. And I think Joe Biden did the wise thing yesterday, as I said in yesterday's episode, and picked a woman who, A, is going to provide the Biden campaign with a boost of energy and enthusiasm, a campaign now that's going to have a lot more women coming out more strongly for it, a campaign now that's going to get black women invigorated and involved, a campaign now that's going to have a lot more black men involved, I think. I think you're going to have a campaign now that's going to bring in a lot more people of color in general. And then you're also going to have a campaign now that is going to have a passionate center to it. Joe Biden is not the most passionate person. I mean, he is passionate. And I think about 12 years ago, he was very passionate. But obviously, as you get older, things change and maybe your passions don't change. But in Joe Biden, the way he expresses himself has changed a bit, even though, yes, he's always been someone who's been prone to a gaffe here and there. He needs some energy. And although he does have some energy, Kamala Harris, who is 22 years his junior, has much, much more of it. And she has a conviction to her. She has a story that so many of us relate to. And you can't help, if you are a human being on this planet, if you are a human being in this country, you cannot help but be happy for Kamala Harris on a personal level. And it doesn't matter what your politics are. I mean, for her personally, this is for making history. If you cannot appreciate that she made history on that personal level and appreciate that the country has now seen this achievement on this level, however big or small you think that might be, that is a step forward for the country. On a personal note for her. If you can't be at least appreciative of that for her on a personal note, then really you've got nothing to say. You should just go home. And I address that to white progressives. I address that to black progressives. I address that to black and white Republicans and anybody else in the Democratic Party or anywhere who are begrudged now, or who this morning, or whom last night, or whom yesterday evening, or whom yesterday afternoon has some problem with Kamala Harris becoming the vice presidential pick. Your politics do not have to align with Kamala Harris and her politics to at least acknowledge and be happy in terms of the country making a stride forward. And I know some progressives, some white progressives who are bristling, who bristled yesterday. And I spoke to at least one of them. And they absolutely weren't having it. Oh, Kamala Harris. They weren't having Kamala Harris. And I can understand that some people won't be happy with that, but there was never going to be a true progressive put on this ticket, number one. Look at whom Joe Biden had selected in his final 10 or 11. There was not one bona fide progressive there, and don't tell me that Senator Elizabeth Warren is a progressive. She's certainly to the left, I would say, to a degree to the left of Kamala Harris. But Senator Warren, is not a true progressive. Yes, she masquerades as that, but I do not think that she's a true progressive, not the way that people like Bernie Sanders is, not the way that people like AOC is, not the way like people like Ilhan Omar is. And by the way, congratulations to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. I'm so proud of her. It's easy to actually overlook the fact that, at least easy for some, because I overlooked it, that Ilhan Omar won her primary yesterday evening in Minnesota in District Number 5 there. So, she absolutely dominated that primary last night. And of course, when you're getting caught up in the history-making moment, it's easy to overlook that. But I want to acknowledge the Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and I follow her on Twitter. She follows me on Twitter. And even before those two things happened, I always respected and always have respected Ilhan Omar. I think she is a very important figure in the politics in this country. And she herself made history just a little under, 2 years ago, when she was elected and became one of the first two Muslim women ever to be elected to the United States Congress. So that is history as well that I want to reiterate here. But while Senator Warren does have some progressivism, she's not a true progressive in the mold of some of the other people. I mean, you saw what happened with the campaign. Her campaign and how she said she wasn't going to take money from PACs and all of that. That all changed for her. So, there's all kinds of considerations. And then you have to get into defining what a progressive is. And I think that's fairly easy for me, what a progressive is. Someone who wants progress and who makes progress and who not just wants progress in 5 years, but wants it in 5 minutes. I'm a progressive. I mean, and even I've had to learn that you do not get things in 5 minutes. And the history of this country and the history of the world has never been that way. Never been that way. Change is a slow and gradual process. Change is a vehicle that takes time. And sometimes you get change a little bit quicker than other times, but change is something that does not just happen overnight. It needs to be pushed forward constantly, and there must be no relenting. Now, whether you agree or not on Senator Warren, I'm going to say this, that Kamala Harris is not a progressive. Kamala Harris is not a progressive in the mold of people that I would say are progressives, like Fannie Lou Hamer, like Shirley Chisholm, in that mold, like that. Kamala Harris is a center-left politician who has fought some good fights while she's been in the Senate, who has been, I think, a very good senator. There have been, of course, issues, as I've said before, with her prosecutorial record. And I know, yes, a day or two ago, the USA Today had an op-ed from a public defender here in San Francisco who worked opposite Kamala Harris when Kamala Harris was the San Francisco district attorney. And the public defender, I forget her last name, I think it's Nikki Solis. She was on MSNBC last night, and in this article, op-ed in USA Today, she praised Kamala Harris and called her the most progressive district attorney in the United States. Now, I can agree or disagree with that, but I think it is special praise from a public defender of all people to take the moment to write in the USA Today that after the years that she spent working opposite Kamala Harris as San Francisco district attorney in many, many cases, this particular public defender, Nikki Solis, can write that editorial and say she was the most progressive. Now, I think Nikki Solis, as a public defender in San Francisco, would know whether or not that were true. And despite the fact that I had some misgivings about Harris, I must say that Kamala Harris, certainly as a senator, has been very much on the progressive side of things. Very much so. But if you cannot put your politics aside and celebrate or at least appreciate that the United States of America as a country has at least done this, then you just need to go home. You sound like a malcontent. I mean, I've acknowledged when Republican women have got to that point. And even though I detested, personally, look, her politics were awful, Sarah Palin. I absolutely, I said, well, congratulations to her on becoming the first Republican woman to be a vice presidential nominee. I mean, I could bring myself to say that. Even I can do that. And I thought that Sarah Palin's politics were horrible. And I thought she was woefully inept and inexperienced. And I thought it was a disastrous pick. But did I find it within myself to say, congratulations? Did I appreciate that John McCain made that move and that the Republican Party actually did that? Yeah, I did. Because it's a moment for the country's history. Now, again, whether or not you agree with Sarah Palin's politics, that's quite another story. But I think that sometimes we get so locked in if this person does not align exactly with everything we stand for. And this is really for people on the left and on the progressive side, like I am. I'm a progressive. Some of us, we get so hung up that everything has to align. And that doesn't even happen in life. Everything in your life is not perfectly aligned. So why are you expecting that this politician over here is perfectly aligned, has got to be perfectly aligned with everything that you stand for? Some of us on the left do this. Some of us in the progressive movement do this. If there's a hair out of place for some of us, that means that the world's over. Yeah, okay, I'm slightly exaggerating. But we are very doctrinaire. And that's because we care. That's because we are passionate. That's because we do demand more. And we should all demand more. But to the point in which you're going to castigate or be upset that this person over here was picked. Some people said to me, well, I'd prefer Stacey Abrams. Oh, I did too. I prefer Stacey Abrams, but look what happened. Stacey Abrams, who publicly campaigned for this moment, was basically left on the cutting room floor for lack of a better bit of terminology. And if we are really honest with ourselves, for all the excellent work that Stacey Abrams has done with voting rights, Stacey Abrams does not have the kind of experience, nor does she have the national profile, nor has she been battle-tested nationally in the way that Senator Kamala Harris has. Now, yes, I know people will point to, well, she did publicly have this battle in the Georgia governor's race where it was stolen from her by Brian Kemp, and it was. The Republican Brian Kemp stole that election from her. There's no question about it. And yes, she got national exposure from that. And yes, 2 years ago, a year or two ago, she gave the response for the Democratic State of the Union response, which I thought was very good. That was what had a lot of people talking about her running for president or being a vice presidential pick. There was this news early on, a year or so ago, that the Biden campaign was looking at Stacey Abrams. And yes, Stacey Abrams may have been in the final 11 or 12, but she wasn't in the final 5 or 6. Well, she was. I mean, she was phone called yesterday. But this idea that people are upset now, some people in the progressive movement are upset at Kamala Harris. I mean, goodness gracious me. I think you should be more upset at voting for Jill Stein 4 years ago, because some of you were so stubborn. Oh, I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. She stole it from Bernie. Bernie's not the nominee. I'm a Bernie fan. I voted for him in these primaries this year, and I voted for him in the primaries 4 years ago. But when it was clear that Bernie was not going to get the nomination this time, and certainly, especially in 2016, I didn't hold that grudge against Hillary Clinton. I voted for her. I cast that vote, even though I didn't agree with some of Hillary Clinton's politics and some of her record. Really? I'm going to be that stubborn and doctrinaire that I'm going to write in a candidate or vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson or any of these other people who had no chance of winning a darn thing? It makes no sense. Nor does it make sense to say, oh, well, my state's going to go for her anyway. No, no, no. I don't care if the state you're in is going to go for the candidate anyway. You need to vote for the candidate. Every single vote. And as many votes as a candidate can get, if yours is a contributor to that, vote. I really don't want to see anybody writing in a damn thing this year in November or in October or even in September, because there's early voting going on next month in places like Minnesota. I don't want to see anybody writing in a damn thing. And I know there's a libertarian who is trying to push for being on the ballot. I know that Kanye West, they're trying to get Kanye West, and he's already failed in places like Wisconsin because a lot of those signatures are forged, which is a crime, by the way. I know the Republicans are working hard at work to get Kanye West on the ballot in these swing states. Do not be duped by any of this garbage and these shenanigans. You've really got two options. You're either going to go in November or in October or next month, and you're going to either vote for Donald Trump or you're going to vote for Joe Biden. It's that simple. And any write-in, any third-party vote is a vote of privilege, and quite frankly, a vote of white privilege. And quite frankly, a vote of ignorance. Because you know and I know that those people you're voting for will not win a damn thing. Their parties are too small. Their parties don't run the system of the elections. They don't run them. And if you want to vote for someone like that, well, you have to do one of two things. You have to eradicate the system in which it exists presently, where these politics of elections and the elections exist. You have to eradicate that system then. And then set up a new one. And then set up that new one with controls for the progressive movement to build that third party. Or you can do what people like Ilhan Omar are doing, Rashida Tlaib are doing, Ayanna Pressley are doing, AOC are doing. And that's to be a progressive and run inside the Democratic Party to change and transform that party. That is what you can do. You yourself can run for office. And I'm not talking about having to run for president or for Senate or for governor or even for Congress. I am talking about running on a local level and run as a progressive. Get inside the party of the Democrats. If you're one of these people who are bristling this morning or this afternoon or this evening or tomorrow or yesterday or last night, bristling that Kamala Harris has made history in this way, instead of sitting there and bristling, instead of sitting there and being resentful, instead of sitting there and being racist, instead of sitting there and being misogynistic or misogynoirish or sexist, get up off your butt and start charting your course. Run for office locally. Run to disrupt and get inside and transform the Democratic Party. There are things with the Democratic platform as it stands under Joe Biden that I am not happy with. And part of the situation with that is that we have to push next week. We have to continue to push as people are to deal with this platform. It needs to be changed. And we need to have Medicare for all on that platform. I know that Joe Biden doesn't go for that. But we have to keep pushing him. We pushed him to pick a black woman because he got a lot of heat from us. There were lots of groups, black women's groups. There was a letter, an op-ed in the Washington Post a couple of months ago by at least a quartet of black women who are very prominent in politics and strategy, political strategy, who made it very clear to Joe Biden, you've got to pick a black woman. He had Amy Klobuchar, even the senator out of Minnesota, who knew that she was not going to stand a chance and was certainly on the short list. After what happened to George Floyd, of course, the murder of George Floyd, she knew that she had no chance in Minnesota. And her record with black people is worse than Kamala Harris's. Far worse. She dropped out and said that Joe Biden has to pick someone who is either black or a woman of color. And she made that public. She said that she spoke to Joe Biden about it. And then just a couple of days ago, there was an open letter from, I believe, at least 100 black men who are prominent, who said the very same thing. You've got to pick a black woman. I have said the very same thing for a number of weeks and months, and particularly on social media, here on Twitter, at the Popcorn, REEL. And so that has happened. So Joe Biden on that level is capable of listening and capable of being pushed. Because I dare say he and the majority white male brain trust around him making the decisions were all angling towards people like maybe Elizabeth Warren, but perhaps not. I think Elizabeth Warren was probably further down their list. They were looking toward a centrist. They were looking toward a Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. They were looking toward a Senator Amy Klobuchar. That was the kind of person they were looking to. And since Klobuchar was not going to be the person, they were looking somewhere at someone like a Gretchen Whitmer. And maybe Susan Rice. And I got that wrong, as I've said before. I got it wrong about Susan Rice. But this is a special moment. Whether you agree with Kamala Harris or not, black women in this country are proud. And I, as a black man, am proud and very happy for Kamala Harris. And if you really cannot allow for that moment to be celebrated, regardless of the politics, then what kind of person are you? You're just so selfish and single-minded that it's got to be you, and everything you want. That's what does not separate some of these progressives, some of these white progressives, from any of these racist white Republicans, any of these white Republicans. And there's racist in any group, any party, I should say. Any political party has. I mean, they're white racists in the Democratic Party. They're white racists in the progressive movement. They are white racists in the Republican Party, of course. But that is what is very similar about these two groups. This narrow, doctrinaire way of looking at things. They don't have my politics, so they're out. I mean, this is what happens on the Republican side with these Republicans. And I don't like Ben Sasse because I think he's a disaster. He's voted with Donald Trump 96% of the time. He voted to acquit him just over 6 months ago in the impeachment sham trial that Mitch McConnell conducted. Was a complete sham. No witnesses. That's a sham trial, folks. And Ben Sasse, the Republican senator out of Nebraska, I believe, is Nebraska's where I think it's Nebraska that he represents. Ben Sasse criticized Donald Trump for the executive order that he signed over the weekend, which, as I've already told you on this program, this podcast, was an absolute joke of an executive order, and also very dangerous and unconstitutional. That's what Ben Sasse criticized him for, that it's unconstitutional slop. And then you had Donald Trump complaining, and you had Donald Trump supporters complaining, oh, Ben Sasse, oh, he's a Republican in name only. Because, I mean, that goes on the progressive side as well. Oh, well, you know, Senator Elizabeth Warren's record doesn't match up here and here. Heck, I just talked about it myself a few minutes ago. Her record doesn't match up here and here. So we've got to throw her out. I mean, it's just ridiculous. That I just get suspicious, quite frankly, of all of that, you know? When you've got people sounding like each other on the both ends of the spectrum. You've got the right wingers, racists, and then you've got the white progressives, you know, and both of them sound the same in terms of their very doctrinaire approach to everything. If you're not exactly everything on this list, we dismiss you. If you say one or two things that are different from what you say on everything else, then we disown you. Or we at least castigate you and look at you with some suspicion now. You have to wonder sometimes if these are two sides of the same damn coin, to be honest. Heck, I mean, I think I am evolved enough, and excuse me for the self-indulgence and the brag, but I do think that I'm at least a little evolved to at least respect the moment that Kamala Harris has in her political career here, in her personal life, and for black women. I think I can acknowledge that, whether I agree with every single thing that Kamala Harris has done or whether I don't. I mean, as a human being, if you cannot extend that level of appreciation to her and a tip of the hat to her, because the country actually has, for all that black women have done for it, has now finally, after 244 bloomin' years, said, okay, we see you. There's someone who in the country has said, we see you, to black women. If you can't at least acknowledge that, something's wrong with you.
Senator Obama, this is truly a good day for America. You know, too often the achievements of our opponents go unnoticed. So I wanted to stop and say, congratulations. How perfect that your nomination would come on this historic day. Tomorrow we'll be back at it, but tonight, Senator, a job well done. I'm John McCain, and I approve this message.
That was Senator John McCain on August the 28th, 2008. In that ad you just heard, he was congratulating Senator Barack Obama on becoming the first black presidential nominee in a major political party. I mean, that's what John McCain, the Republican, did 12 years ago. We're almost exactly at 12 years from when he did that. And if he, as the opponent of Senator Barack Obama, could take the time to make an ad and cut that ad and put that ad together and have it broadcast on the very same day, the same night that Barack Obama made the kind of history he made, then why are people complaining? Can't some of these people who are bristling tonight or today or yesterday about Kamala Harris, whether they are progressives, whether they are Democrats, whether they are Republicans, can't they show the same kind of humility and respect for Kamala Harris in this moment that Senator John McCain, the Republican, did for Senator Barack Obama in his moment 12 years ago? It's not that hard, is it? Welcome back. So vote, vote, vote. Please vote early. Please vote early. North Carolina voters, this one's for you. You want to go to NC as in cat, S as in Sam, B as in Bravo, E as in Edward, .gov/voters. What that will do is bring you to the North Carolina State Board of Elections website, and you will see numbers of categories, many categories. There's about 7 or 8 of them actually. And you will see something that says online voter registration. You can go down to scroll down and find online voter registration, registering to vote in North Carolina. If you want to register in the state, you've got to complete a voter registration application. So you click on the link underneath registering to vote in North Carolina, and you will click on that voter registration application, and there it is right in front of you. And you can actually fill that in online, but you still have to print it out and mail it in. And you mail it to the North Carolina State Board of Elections, or you can mail it to your county board of elections office. And there are, the lovely thing about this is that on that PDF itself at the bottom, on the, I guess the second or third page of it, the third page of that PDF of that application, are all the county board of election officers. It's really good. And then there's at least 50 of them on that list. It's great. So that's how you can register to vote in North Carolina. It's useful, it's helpful, definitely something that you want to do. Remember that in North Carolina, you have the deadline to register is 25 days before the election. So count back 25 days from November the 3rd, and that will give you the date that you need. So you have to be able to make sure that you vote that you register to vote by 25 days before. Now, if you want to change information about your voting, you can do that online. Check registration status and details. So what you do is you can do this on the DMV website, and I'm not a fan of these DMV websites because, like I say, the DMV can be unreliable. It really can. But if you want to check your vote, if you are registered to vote, you can absolutely check it by doing the following. When you are on the North Carolina online voter registration page, which is ncsb.gov/voters, and you scroll down, you can click on where it says near the bottom, you scroll down, it says completing the voter registration form. You will click on a category there. Underneath that red heading that says completing the voter registration form, you will see some italics and bold italics. DMV customers who are registered to vote or update their registrations online. Click on the online link, and that will bring you to voter registration application. And then what you will do is scroll down there, and then you can click on check registration status and details. You click on that link, that will bring you to voter search, and then you go put your information in. That's how you can check your voter registration. It's a bit convoluted, but that's how you can do it. And I urge you to check your voter registration once every week through the end of October. Very important. So that's North Carolina. I told you that the registration deadline to vote is 25 days before the election. That's very, very important that you do understand that. So I want to make sure that everybody understands if you are a North Carolina voter, you have to go to that website and follow the prompts there. It's fairly straightforward. It's not difficult. I wish it were a little bit more picturesque as a site, but look, you can't have everything the way you want it in all of these states' websites. I mean, some of them are much better than others, as I've told you. I will be ranking all of these when the time comes. So, North Carolina does have early voting, and you can start to vote in North Carolina 19 days before the November 3rd general election. And the deadline, the last day to early vote in North Carolina, is 3 days before the general election. So that would be October the 30th or October the 31st. That would be your last day to vote early. But as I've always said, don't wait for these deadlines. Don't push it. Don't leave it to the last minute. There are too many things that can and will happen if you leave it to the last minute. It always happens this way. You're coasting, you're cruising along and la-di-da, and then you leave it to the last 2 days, something happens. You know, your internet access is out. Your car breaks down. There's a bus route change. There's an earthquake that happens. There's a severe storm that happens. There's a derecho storm that was going on yesterday and the day before. It was really fierce. I mean, there's all manner of things that can happen. Please do not leave this to the last minute. Don't. This is your vote. This is your future. This is your kids' future. This is generations of kids' futures. This is the future of think of all the things you do in life where you don't hesitate to do it immediately, right? There's so many things you do every day that you don't hesitate to do, that you don't have to be prodded to do. Take the same approach with voting. Take the same approach with checking your voter registration. Take the same approach to demanding an early voting ballot or a vote-by-mail ballot. Take that same approach to demanding that ballot. Going to your local board of elections in person. You can call them, of course, but go there if you feel comfortable and say, I want my ballot for the November 3rd general election. Can I have one now, please? If they don't have them, ask them when will they have them. And because you want this ballot. And the quicker you get that ballot and the quicker you fill it out and return it, the better off you are. You do not want to be a person who sends your ballot in on November 1st, sends it in on October, and then it doesn't get there until a day or two or a week after. Despite what they say about the postmark deadline, you know what's going on now. You've got to absolutely make it count. So make sure that you do this early. Optimally, if you're someone in an early voting state, you need to vote the first day you can in person. Or you need to make sure you drop off your ballot early. Please, people, please do not wait and do not sit on this information. Pass it on to your family and friends, please. Educate your family and friends about the importance of it, of the importance of voting early and not procrastinating. I'll be right back with North Dakota. Welcome back. North Dakota. So for North Dakota voters, you go to sos.nd.gov. That's sos.n as in Nancy, D as in Daniel, .gov. That gets you to the Secretary of State of North Dakota. And you will see on this website, which is, again, it's got information crammed in here. But if you go on the left-hand side and scroll down, you will come to what says elections. Click on elections. That will bring you to a place where you see, well, gosh, it says here November 6, 2018 election results, but you don't want to go to that. You just scroll down to the bottom and it will have a number of bullet points. The last bullet point will say voters. You click on voters. That brings you to voting basics for North Dakota. Now, look, there's all kinds of things on there. And you can look at all the links. There's information that you can find. The most important thing to know about North Dakota is that there is no voter registration in North Dakota. It may be the only state in the entire country that does not ask you to register to vote. All you have to do in North Dakota is bring valid ID and proof of residence with you to vote when you go to the polls. So that's the thing. It's unusual. As I said, maybe the only state in the country that does this. At least the ones I've come across so far, this is the first one I have heard of as I go through the list alphabetically. So North Dakota does not require any kind of voter registration. So if you are a first-time voter, or if you're not a first-time voter, all you have to do in North Dakota is bring proof of residency in the state. And there are, I guess, you can find what kinds of proof those would be that's necessary. And also bring your voter ID. Bring your ID, a photo ID of yourself that shows that you are who you are and that you live in the state. That's how you do it in North Dakota. So you can bring, whether you vote early, whether you don't, you can bring that proof with you. You must bring that proof with you, actually. I think that's the best way to put it. You must bring that proof with you as far as that is concerned. So in North Dakota, that's what you do for voter registration. You don't even register to vote. When you vote, whether it's early or whether you vote on the day, which I prefer you don't do, you vote early, because in North Dakota, you can vote at least 15 days before the election. So if you go back 15 days, 2 weeks or so plus before November 3rd, that brings you to roughly the middle of October. It may vary in different counties in North Dakota, so make sure that you check with the applicable county that you are in North Dakota to see how early you can vote, what's the earliest date. And then the latest date to early vote is literally the day before the election, so that would be November the 2nd. That is the last day to obviously early vote, because the next day is the election. But once again, I warn everybody, I caution everybody, please do not wait until the very day of the election or a few days before. You want to do this as soon as you can, immediately. Do it early, please, because it will be so much less stressful for you. You will not be fretting in the middle of October, worrying. If you get this done in early October, or if you get this done in late September, if you get this done in the middle of September or in the early part of October, optimally, I would love it if everybody were able to vote no later than the middle of October, at the very latest. Optimally, the first week of October, but I get it. There are lots of states that won't do that, but there are lots of states who will be mailing out ballots. But again, you have to really demand your ballot. Don't wait for them to mail it to you. With all these mail delays, please don't do that. Please absolutely get proactive here and go to your local county board of elections. Find out where that is. Go there. Either call them, make a phone call, or go to them and ask them. Say to them, I want my ballot for November 3rd. I'd like to pick one up, or go to the office in person, like I say, and ask them for it. I think that's the best way. If you want to vote, and if you want to make sure you vote early, please, I urge you to do it. Believe me, I urge you to vote early. So the states I've done today are the two North states, North Carolina and North Dakota. Next, two of the O states, Ohio and then Oklahoma. Starting off with Ohio, if you are an Ohio voter, you want to enter this web page information. The web address is ohiosos.gov. ohiosos.gov. That will take you to the Frank LaRose Ohio Secretary of State page. You will see his logo on the top left-hand side. Underneath that, you will see a blue band with different categories in it. One of them will be elections and voting. You click on elections and voting. That will bring you to the page, and you will see a photograph of Frank LaRose reading to some children. Underneath that picture, when you scroll down, you will see a number of headings, one of which says Voters Vote Ohio.gov. You want to click on that one. It's the first one on the left. You click on that, and it brings you to voteohio.gov and a number of different categories. One heading says My Responsibilities, another says My Voting Options, and a third says My Election. Underneath where it says My Responsibilities, you will see 4 different categories. One of which says Register to Vote. Another of the 4 says Check My Voter Registration. You will click on the one that applies to you. If you have never registered to vote before in Ohio, then this is where you need to go to. Click on Register to Vote, and from there just follow the prompts. It's a pretty self-explanatory process. If you're someone who has previously registered to vote, and obviously someone who's voted, you want to go to the category underneath the setting of the tab, My Responsibilities. You want to go to where it says Check My Voter Registration. You click on Check My Voter Registration, and then enter your name, first and last, the county you're in, and then search from there to find out if you are on the rolls. Remember, you want to be able to check, and you should check your voter registration once a week, every week, through the end of October. Very important that you do that. On that same page where I told you about the categories for voteohio.gov, you'll see My Responsibilities, My Voting Options, My Election. So where it says My Voting Options, there are a few tabs, 8 different tabs, one of which says Early In-Person Voting. You can click on Early In-Person Voting, and that will bring you to the header, Early In-Person Voting. What you want to do is go to the bottom of that category, that particular section. And in small print, it will say, click here for Ohio's statewide voting schedule. That is what you will want to go to find out about when you can vote in Ohio for early voting for the November 3rd general election. You click on that blue link, and voila, the next page is the voting schedule. It's a very good website. What you will see there is that the military and overseas absentee voting begins on September the 18th. That's literally 5 weeks from now. Just a day under 5 weeks from now, when you can start voting if you are military personnel and or overseas absentee voter. If you want to absentee vote by mail in Ohio, you can do that beginning on October the 6th. That's for the November 3rd election. If you are an early in-person voter and want to go to the polls early, then the first day that you can do that in Ohio to vote for the November 3rd general election is October 6th as well. So that is the early voting schedule for Ohio for the November 3rd general election. There's so many really good things on this website, by the way. Ohio has information on absentee voting, voter toolkits, district maps. It's a wonderful website, and it all starts with you going to ohiosos.gov. Next, Oklahoma. Welcome back. Now, Oklahoma. For voters in Oklahoma, you will want to type this web address into your browser. ok.gov/elections. That's ok.gov/elections. And then you will see the Oklahoma State Election Board. This is a no-frills website, but it is very, very easy to use. You will see some information on the homepage about the runoff primary election and special elections, which are going to be held in just under 2 weeks on October the 25th, 2020. But what you really want to keep your eye on is the area below that when you scroll down in gray. And in this gray oblong box, it's a small, thin box. It says Quick Links. And underneath the word Quick Links, you will see the OK Voter portal. What you want to do if you are an Oklahoma voter or someone interested in registering to vote in Oklahoma, you have to click on that OK Voter portal link. That will bring you to the page OK Voter Portal. Then what you will see underneath that is a small hyperlink that says OK Voter Portal Access. And in parentheses, you'll see OVP. You click on that, and that brings you to where you want to go. Now, you will see at the very bottom registered voter information. So if you want to check your voter registration, you will enter your last name and first name there and your date of birth and click on Find Me. So that's how you check your voter registration. Now, if you're voting for the first time in Oklahoma and you want to register to vote, right above where it says registered voting information, you will see some fine print. And that fine print, which is above where it says voter registration, it will say, do you need to register to vote for the first time? It's in bold. You would click on the words start the process. That link is what you click on. And once you click on that, it will take you to the voter registration application. And then you just answer the questions and follow the prompts. It is simple. Oklahoma, that is, again, it's not the most beautiful looking website, but my goodness me, it gets you in and gets you out. Boom, boom, you're done. I mean, this is how it should be. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful, glamorous looking site. It's got to be the best functioning site. And Oklahoma's site is really good. It is. I mean, you just go to you go to ok.gov/elections. I mean, it's really easy. It's really easy. And there's lots of information there, election information, voter information, early voting. You click on, I mean, this is great. I mean, this is really good. And by the way, this is terrific stuff. You can vote early in Oklahoma. And let me tell you this. You can vote early in Oklahoma in many of the counties there in person as early for the November election now. As early as August the 20th. I think. Now let me just check that, because there may be a primary going on there. I mean, I really should. Now, let me now check this, because I've said that, and I need to really look and see if that is accurate, because that may not be accurate. So scratch what I just said about the general election vote early in Oklahoma State. This is what you need to do. Oklahoma on August the 25th is having a primary and a special election. So disregard what I said about the general election as far as Ohio is concerned. What you need to know about Ohio in terms of early voting, because this is actually very important. I mean, what you need to know for Ohio, for Oklahoma, is that early voting in Oklahoma is available, but early voting in Oklahoma, early voting in Oklahoma is available for 5 hours on the Saturday before the election. That's Oklahoma. So literally, 3 days before the general election? That's Halloween? Is that Halloween? I think so. I think that's literally October the 31st in Oklahoma for the November 3rd general election. That is when you can early vote for 5 hours. So you can see how restrictive that is in terms of early voting. And again, that is the situation with Oklahoma as best I can tell. And that's based on what I've seen on there, what I've read on their website. It's literally 5 days before the election, actually. And then that's the early. Now I'm seeing some. See, this is conflicting. It's either 5 days before the election or 3 days before. Now, it could start 5 days before the election in Oklahoma. Early voting may begin 5 days before the election and end 3 days before the election on the Saturday at 2 p.m., which I think is what's happened. But what you need to do with that is contact your local election office, and that Oklahoma website has that information on it. It's easy to find. So the voting period in Oklahoma to do early voting for the November 3rd general election is very, very short. You have literally about 2 or 3 days window. It's a very narrow window, which is not good, but there it is. That is where you are with Oklahoma. Now, their website is darn good. Very, very good, because it's very easy. It's very clear in terms of pretty much everything. Except for the voting early thing, although there's a tab on that says voting early. There's phone numbers you can contact, where you go to About Us, you click on Contact Us, there's an address, there's a phone number, there's hours, there's a mailing address. I mean, it's there. Oklahoma does provide that much information. So as far as that's concerned, I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, I think. But you will want to check about when exactly the early voting starts. I think it's 5 days before the election and ending 3 days before. So you literally have 2 or 3 days in which to early vote in Oklahoma for the November 3rd general election. And it's literally, 5 days before the election itself. So it's really those last 2 or 3 days in October where you can get to do that. I would take full advantage of going in there early if you want to do that in person. Vote by mail, I'm sure you can do the same. You can do the same there as well. in Oklahoma. This is what you can do. 6 days before the election, in person, I just think you should just go ahead and not wait for that deadline. Make sure you go to your local Board of Elections office, County Board of Elections office in Oklahoma, and ask for a ballot. Go to their offices or call their offices and say, you want a ballot now, can I pick one up? Or you just go to the office and say, I want a ballot for November's election. Do not wait for them to mail it to you. Please, I would really urge you at this point to be proactive. We are almost at the middle of the month, my goodness. We're almost in the middle of August already. We are literally only 83 days from this general election. And we are just a few days away from the Democratic National Convention that's going to be held next Monday. We are then another week plus away. A week after that is the Republican National Convention. Then a few weeks after that are the debates. And in October is the only vice presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. At least at this point, it's Mike Pence. I submit to you that there's going to be a change by Donald Trump. He is going to, I think, in, I guess, an October surprise, or maybe a convention surprise, I think he's going to change his vice presidential person. I really do. I think he's going to change. I think he's going to change it. And I think he's going to change from Mike Pence to Nikki Haley. Either Nikki Haley or Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota. That's my prediction. It's going to be either Haley or Noem. Now, I could be wrong. He may stick with Pence. But I think that it's very possible that Donald Trump is going to do that. That campaign is afraid of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. In Oklahoma, 25 days before Election Day is the deadline, whether you're doing voting in person or voting by mail. You want to make sure that registering to vote, the deadline is October the 20, let me do that again. October, 25 days before Election Day. There is no online voter registration in Oklahoma. You cannot register to vote online. You can in Ohio, and the deadline there is 30 days before Election Day, but there is no online voter registration in Oklahoma. In a number of these states, a lot of these states that are Republican controlled, or at least a number of them, you cannot, and in some Democratic states, you cannot register to vote online. So there you have it, Ohio and Oklahoma. A final word when I return.
Because here's the message. Although Heather was a caring and compassionate person, so are a lot of you. A lot of you go that extra mile. And I think the reason that what happened to Heather has struck a chord is because we know that what she did is achievable. We don't all have to die. We don't all have to sacrifice our lives. They tried to kill my child to shut her up. Well, guess what? You just magnified her. I want to happen. You ask me, what can I do? So many caring people. Pages of pages of pages of stuff I'm going through. I'm reading pages of pages of pages, how she's touching the world. I want this to spread. I don't want this to die. This is just the beginning of Heather's legacy. This is not the end of Heather's legacy. You need to find in your heart that small spark of accountability. What is there that I can do to make the world a better place? What injustice do I see and want to turn away? I don't really want to get involved in that. I don't want to speak up. They'll be annoyed with me. My boss might think less of me. I don't care. You poke that finger at yourself like Heather would have done, and you make it happen. You take that extra step. You find a way to make a difference in the world. So remember in your heart, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And I want you to pay attention, find what's wrong, don't ignore it, don't look the other way. You make a point to look at it and say to yourself, what can I do to make a difference? And that's how you're going to make my child's death worthwhile. I'd rather have my child, but by golly, if I got to give her up, we're going to make it count.
That was Susan Bro, the mother of Heather Heyer, who on this day 3 years ago was killed in Charlottesville, Virginia. A white racist ran her over during a counter-protest of the statues in Charlottesville of these racist and Confederate generals. Heather Heyer was a young white woman who died fighting for the best of this country, who died fighting in the name of Black Lives Matter, who died fighting for decency, who died fighting for justice, who died fighting for humanity. Susan Bro in that clip was speaking at a service, a memorial service for her daughter, and that service was on August the 16th, 2017. And what Susan Bro was doing was challenging fellow white people to not walk away and instead to take a challenge on and fight for a better place and fight for decency and fight for everybody, not just for yourself. To fight for justice, to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. That is unjust. That is not right. That's what Susan Bro was challenging white people to do. And as I've said before, white people must challenge other white people to take this hatred from their hearts and their minds and their souls, this terror they have invented of a black person somehow being scary to them. This self-invented terror that they have in their hearts and their minds must be cut out and eliminated from their hearts and minds. And instead, a culture of love and respect for humanity and all of the people in it, including black people, including black lives, all black lives, must be put into their minds. A mindset that recognizes and respects all of our humanity. That is the challenge for white Americans that remains the challenge for white Americans. And on this day, remembering and commemorating the 3-year mark of the horrifying murder of Heather Heyer, it is worth remembering this challenge for white America, and is also worth remembering that Heather Heyer comes in the tradition of numerous white people who have died standing for what they believe in, who have died fighting for a better and just society, who have died fighting for black lives, who have died believing in justice for everybody, not just for white people. Heather Heyer joins this list of white people, among others: Viola Liuzzo, Summer Taylor, James Reeb, Andrew Goodman, Mickey Schwerner, John Brown. Just a small list of white people who have, in this country's history, put their lives on the line, killed during the fight for Black Lives Mattering and the fight for justice. Never forget Heather Heyer. Never forget any of the names of those I have just read to you. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.